Or there's something in me that wants to create. It's taking nothing and making it into something. It's interesting because it gives you a purpose. But I think human beings, they need to have a purpose.
Yeah.
They need to feel like they belong to something.
What makes a song pop for you where you think, oh, wow, that's a great song. I like that song.
Good beats, just, I guess, how it sort of makes you feel. I don't know what it is at the moment with this obsession with lo-fi. Like, not great sound quality. Because
like it's like an intentional,
it is
not great.
It is.
Yeah, but or maybe it wasn't great and they've just then called it lo-fi. Is that what?
Maybe.
Yeah. Welcome everyone to the Good Vibes Show. I've got Jay with me today, or Dr J as he's known in his DJ and producing and radio world. We're going to have a chat about music and particularly about getting into, if you're an independent musician wanting to get on the radio. He's got a lot of knowledge and experience in that area. He's a radio presenter. He's a musician himself, a producer, songwriter, instrumentalist, all of these things. And he's got a great voice for radio and a great voice for the show.
Oh, why, thank you.
So welcome, Jay.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Marie.
Awesome. Okay.
Thank you for having me.
That's my pleasure. So what should we get started with first? I think maybe radio is an interesting one.
All right.
And because that's how we met.
Yes.
Right? Through, if you're in Australia and you are an independent musician, you might know of a thing called AMRAP. And that's a thing where you can sort of submit your songs to. And I think that's how I might have submitted my songs and you'd found my song through that way.
That's exactly how. Yep.
Yep.
So I present radio on RTR FM, and what I was doing at the time was a daytime show. I've done it a couple of times. It's not a regular thing for me, but I've done it a couple of times. And I was determined to do all Australian music for this show that I was doing. And this particular show was music that was up to 3 months old, so newish, basically. And as I frequently do, I trawl AMRAP, as you talked about before, and was finding Australian music. And one of the best things about being a broadcaster is that you have access to this website. You can get this stuff for free.
Yeah.
Don't tell everyone. But yeah, you can get it for free as a broadcaster, have access to it, and then be able to play it. And as long as you credit the artist in a playlist or something like that, they get the royalties and the recognition. And if you're doing your job as a radio presenter, you should be doing that anyway.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's how I found you,
Yep.
particularly because I was looking for some WA content as well. With community radio stations like RTR FM, you need to have a certain amount of female, local, and Australian content. And I did an Australian show, made sure that probably about half of it was Western Australian music, all different genres, mainly because it was one of those things where you don't know who's listening, you don't want to play all the same stuff, and that's how I found you. And you know what? It was so long ago, I can't even remember which track it was. Do you remember?
I think it would have been the Time in Your Hands track. That
sounds awfully familiar.
Popular track. And because I remember that because I hadn't really done any promotion for that track specifically, like because that was one of the first songs I released and I didn't know what I was doing. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing.
Very cool.
At that point.
Very cool.
And people just happened to like that song.
Yeah, right.
And but I was super excited because I grew up listening to RTR and I was like, oh, wow. To me, RTR is just as the same as like Triple J or something. To me, I'm just like, I was like, wow, this is amazing. I've made it. This is awesome.
So you hadn't had any radio airplay up to that point?
I'd had a little bit, but nothing like, well, a few community stations and at that same time had played that song.
Oh, right. Okay. So they gotten hold of it as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But not a, it was sort of, I think, well, I don't know how you rate them, especially if you're not in that local area. You don't really know. Like, when the stations over Eastern States had played my songs, I wasn't really that familiar with those stations.
Okay.
To think, oh, wow, they played my song. I mean, also that kind of has a kudos as well when you think, oh, someone from Sydney played my song.
Yeah,
like,
that's cool.
so cool. Like,
that's cool. Definitely, yeah.
I've had quite a lot of airplay on these little community stations in the UK, and like to me, I'm just
nice.
And I'm just like, yeah, this is so great. Like a UK station is playing my music.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, because they have a similar kind of a thing, not where they have to play Australian music, but where they play independent music. And, they just,
I think the world over, there's community radio stations, and they've all got their little sort of brief and requirement of what they play and everything like that. I think Australian music tends to be a little bit of a novelty still, despite the fact that, like actors in Hollywood and stuff like that who tend to be Australian. It's like, oh, Australia can produce this good stuff. Yeah, right. We didn't know about it. And then all of a sudden people are interested and they're playing it. And yeah. But so it was then. And you'd had some radio airplay up to that point. That's interesting.
Only a little bit, not much though.
Yeah.
Two or three.
Something's better than nothing.
2 or 3 or 4, right? And I was like, wow, this is great. And then, I was told by someone, and I mean, I'd always recommend this to other people.
Yes. I remember that.
Thank people, right?
Yeah,
so I would
100%.
go through the AMRAP thing, and then when I realised that they had that, you can actually go in the back end of that and have a look and see who's played your song, because obviously you're not listening to every station every minute of the day to hear when they're playing it.
Because, I remember that. That's right. Because one of your friends got in contact with me while I was on air, because you can message the station, you can send an email and all that sort of stuff. They messaged me in the studio and said, hey, I'm a friend of Marie's and you're playing a song that's really awesome. I'm going to tell her. And then you reached out to me afterwards, I think, through, I don't even remember.
Facebook Messenger, I
It
think,
might have been
probably.
Facebook. Yeah, exactly. And I think it was, And then you said thanks or whatever. And of course, because, WA Music, and we do it just as good as everybody else does, if not better most of the time. And I know what you mean about RTR, because, in the 90s, I was always a voracious listener, and it was always in the car on the way to or from somewhere, like going out or something like that. So my jam is more sort of dance music, which we'll probably end up talking about, no doubt. But one of those things was that because I wanted to hear some of the stuff that you wouldn't hear on commercial radio all the time, some of it's all right, but most of the time I was interested in the stuff that wasn't getting played on commercial radio so much. And RTR FM was always a big deal because it was the first FM radio station in WA.
Right, okay.
And it is the largest community radio station in Australia in terms of listenership, numbers, studio facilities, and I think revenue's got something to do with it as well, events and all that sort of stuff as well. So very prolific anyway.
Yeah. I mean, they do a really good job of their community fundraising.
Yeah.
Like that, the radiothons and stuff like that they do. Like, they must be well known for that, because they really do well.
Definitely.
For that, right?
Yeah. Well, that just finished, 20th of August, that just finished, actually. That was a big fundraising drive because it's a lot of money to run a radio station.
Yeah.
The licensing, if nothing else, is really expensive.
Even for community stations.
Yeah. Because, and this is the thing, right? Which we'll probably talk about, but anyone can be a presenter, and you can jump on air and you can talk about whatever you want, obviously, within reason. You're not, being hostile or some taboo subject. But effectively, there are some shows in there that allow you the freedom to play whatever you want. So if you want to play 3 hours of chip tunes from 1990s video games, have at it. You can do it. It's not a problem.
Yep.
So the licensing that they have allows them to play pretty much anything and allow people to play as long as you're a member of the station. So you have to be a financial member, which means you pay an annual membership, then you can present as many radio shows as you want, and then you can play what you want as long as it fits the brief of that particular show. But there are some shows you can play whatever you want. The late night shows, 1 a.m. to 4 a.m., 4 a.m. to 6 a.m., you can play whatever.
Yeah. And how did you get into it? How did you get into radio?
So I'd done a little bit of voiceover work with friends, even back when I was a teenager, Rocker Stedford and things like that, those things. There's a couple of friends who had me recorded, and my voice would have boomed out over the stage during a dance number or whatever. I never heard it, thankfully. It's probably a good thing. It was probably terrible.
I remember those Rocker Stedford days because I used to have that when I was in high school. I don't know if they still have it now, but it was massive.
I don't know. It was huge. Yeah, it was huge.
Massive. I remember it used to consume. If you were in that Rocker Stedford, some of those kids, it would consume their whole year. That's all they could ever talk about and do. Yeah.
If you were listening, or if you were at a Rocker Stedford, any of the semi-finals in 1992, you would have heard my voice on 2 separate occasions.
Yeah.
Because was it MLC Methodist Ladies College was entered in two things, I think, in that year. And I had some voiceover stuff. Anyway, always had an interest in it, and was a DJ from the age of 18, doing MC work and stuff like that, weddings, parties, all kinds of stuff, and a lot of the time when people have a wedding and they get married, they don't necessarily have an MC themselves. So what they do is they give you just like a sheet, a run sheet, and say, can you announce this person doing a speech now? Can you announce the cutting of the cake? Can you announce the, first dance, all that sort of stuff? And then in 2019, I finally had enough time. The stars aligned enough for me to be able to sort of sink my teeth into it properly. Did the RTR FM presenters course, and a 6-week course, 1 night a week, a couple of hours a night per session, and you learn everything from talking on a microphone to using the equipment to music selection to what to do, what not to do, all the sort of routines and all that sort of stuff. Did that and then just signed up for as many shows as I possibly could.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and...
How old were you around that time when you started getting into radio? Like teenage years?
Oh, when I started getting into it?
Yeah, when you were first doing it.
18?
Yeah.
17, 18. And I've been dabbling with music at that same point as well. Yeah. So if there was ever a school announcement or something like that, it was usually my voice. People would have got sick of hearing my voice, honestly. They're probably sick of it now.
But that's quite encouraging for people who are young and they think, I have to wait, or I'm not sure if I can get into it, or how would I get into it, that they can.
Now more than ever, you can get yourself, your voice out there if you've got something interesting to say, or even if not, because things like TikTok and YouTube and all that sort of stuff, people are on microphones and recording themselves, so same thing.
Yeah, but there's a difference between recording yourself, watching it and finding that perfect one, right? So maybe you could speak to that a little bit, because that might be quite apprehensive for people thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to be, what if I say, but, that kind of thing. What if I don't know what to say?
Practice. So one of the things, because what happens is a lot of the time, and when I first started RTR FM, I didn't know anybody. I knew no one there. I just thought, right, I'm going to go in cold. I'm going to see what happens, and then maybe develop some skills. Whether it takes me anywhere, it doesn't really matter. This is for me, And like yourself, I imagine something in you makes you want to create something, whether it be music or arts or acting or something like that, And I had it in me where it was sort of always hand in hand with the music stuff. And when I started, I remember, and this is absolutely no negativity towards RTR FM or community radio at all, but when I started, I'd done the course, the 6-week course, and then that was it. There was no further contact. It was then up to you to decide if you wanted to pursue it, if you wanted to do shows, to sign up and put your hand up for stuff like that. So I actively, obviously, sought it out. Right. And then after that, just, did as many shows as I possibly could. But I remember what it felt like, because there was no safety net. Yeah. And you're sort of on your own. So my role at the station, as well as presenter of a couple of different shows, is I'm the overnights coordinator. So when you're new, I'm your point of contact to do shows and sink your teeth in and stuff like that. What I often do is invite newcomers who are perhaps a little bit nervous for their first time to join me on one of my shows, and then they sort of get a feel for it. It's like on-the-job training, basically. Okay. And one of the things I say...
Like the co-pilot.
Pretty much, exactly right. And, my ulterior motive generally is to get them running the show by the second hour of a 2-hour show. Mm-hmm. So they're pushing the buttons, they're talking on the microphone, they're back announcing all the tracks that have been played and stuff like that. And I'm sitting there filling the silence as necessary, and just holding their hand a little bit to, get them through what to say, all that sort of stuff, basically ticking boxes. And one of the things I say to them is that, and you know this yourself, it is impossible to get worse at it by doing it more. Yeah, yeah. And I just said, look, this is, you feel so many people get in there and they're sort of a bit freaked out. And I said, look, I have an idea of where I want you to be by the end of the show. It's entirely up to you. It's entirely up to you how much you participate. But you will not get worse at this.
It's great that you provide that mentoring.
I have to. Because I remember what it felt like. Yeah. And look, I'm not going to toot my own horn, but there are a few people I know, because they were very much on the fence about continuing. They'd done the course, and at the end of it, you have like a little mini exam, which is like a desk test. Okay. And it's like, you have to provide a 20-minute radio show, a couple of talk breaks, a couple of pieces of music. You have to play the sponsored, they call it carts, but they're sponsored segments, like adverts, basically,
Yes.
30 seconds per. And then you have to sort of string it together so that it sounds coherent. Doesn't have to be perfect.
Yep.
Because no one's expecting perfection from a first timer, but it needs to be something that can be a foundation to be built upon. And there were a couple of people who sort of, a little bit of hand holding. It's like, you can do this. I know you can do this because you've technically already done it. It's just on air is different. And that, you've probably done like live broadcasts, right? Have you done anything like live that's gone live as soon as it's being?
I've sung on the radio before. I've done an interview live on the radio. I did that last week. I was playing some live songs, and I was actually in there for almost 2 hours because he does this long show.
Right.
And, little segments and stuff. So there was lots of waiting and stopping and watching him do all the button pressing and all that.
I did see that on social,
So that was kind of interesting because and also I have another friend who had a show down Jandakot Way. So way down Armadale Way. I can't remember what station that is. 103.7 HFM, I think.
Yes, Heritage FM.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Like, it's literally this awesome old building, and it's like some of these shows are in the dead of night, and you kind of like, he's the only one there, and it's like, okay, just go here. You can see that it'd probably be buzzing during the day and whatever. I'm like, okay, so because it's like right in the middle of the woods, literally feels like. And I went down there once because he was doing a show, and I was like, wow, and he told me exactly the same kind of thing, that he'd done this. He'd done a course, and then he just jumped in and started doing the late night things, and but I can imagine how it would be like, you can't have any dead space, and you'd be possibly thinking, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I have to talk now, and some people.
And this was my point, right? Because you can practice as much as you like, but as soon as that microphone lights up with a little red line on it to say that you're live and that everyone who's listening can hear exactly what you're saying, the world changes because it's completely different.
Yep.
You sort of like, and I have literally seen, and they've recovered from it very quickly, but literally seen someone go and then start talking.
Yep.
Because they're like, how do I begin this? And then they can recover quickly because they're like, oh, that's right. I've done this before. It's okay. But it's so different.
You can't have too many of those.
It's so, no. Yep. And that's the thing. Like I said, you will get better at it each time you do it, and you'll learn that you've got a pattern. I mean, I've got a pattern basically, and I regularly do 3 shows. It was 4. One of the shows got cancelled basically just because of lack of available presenters and stuff like that. And the thing is, the late night one's a hard one to do because most of the shows I do are 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. on a weeknight. Like I was there last night doing a hip-hop show called All City Hip Hop, 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. And I had a co-presenter, which is always better.
Especially at that time of night, you'd be a bit worried that you might fall off possibly, or...
When I started, it was 1 a.m. to 4 a.m.
Yeah.
On a Friday morning.
Yeah.
That show's called up late. People still do it regularly. All the new people will go through and do that one. So it's either 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. or 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. on a weekday.
Yeah.
And it's, you know what though? It is an interesting source of inspiration.
Okay. What kind of inspiration?
To write music.
Oh, okay. What, being on the radio gives you inspiration to write music? Or just that time slot, being awake at that time slot?
It's very interesting because... And I won't get too much into it because it's anecdotal at best, but there's some interesting things.
That's what this show's about.
Well, okay.
We were interested in your anecdotes.
Here we go. Buckle in, everyone.
It's
Here
not a
we go.
science podcast. What's your peer reviewed studies?
Here we go. The interesting things happen.
Okay, tell us
at those time of night.
Yeah.
So, because people can contact you directly in the studio.
Okay.
There's a phone.
Yep.
And they can call you, it can talk to you directly when you're there. And obviously you don't answer it when you're about to talk on the microphone, but if it's during the music or whatever, you can talk to people, or they can send you a text message or an email. I generally don't get that many phone calls because I don't encourage it. And one of those things as well is that a lot of people who are tempted to reach out will do so via a text message or an email, just simply because, I don't know, phone calls can be confrontational, I guess. But when you've got some alcohol in you or something else in you that might alter your mental state, then you get some interesting stories and interactions.
Okay.
That's for sure. Especially at about sort of 1:30, 2 o'clock on a...
And are these people that want to chat about that live on air, or they're just calling you up
No, they're just
at
calling.
the station just for like...
Someone's awake because they can hear them on the radio, so they figure, oh, I know the phone number. Yep, I'll call and talk to this person and regale them with tales of when I went to this music festival in 1985 and how they can't sleep and how the drugs that they've been prescribed means that they're insomniacs or that they have fever dreams that feature these sorts of things. Anyway, you get all this sort of stuff, and it's very interesting.
This is compiles into the songwriting.
That not so much. What actually, but yeah, I mean, it certainly, it elevates you a little bit because it's so ridiculous, I guess. And no offense to anybody who calls up and who wants to chat, but some of the topics of conversation are like, what? Okay, completely off on a different tangent to what I was talking about, but yeah, or even the radio show in general. So it doesn't even matter what music they're playing. They're just calling because they can hear a voice on the radio and they think, I can interact with this person right now by calling this number because they're awake too.
Yeah.
No, the source of inspiration for me was driving.
What's that number again?
We might put it down in the comments though. Anyway.
Is that your personal helpline?
No. Yes, my phone number, 0 foot. No, anyway. No, it's, it was driving to and from the studio very late at night, in particular from the studio. So 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. was a show that I was doing quite regularly. And at 4 a.m., there's no one out.
Yeah.
Because it's before all the tradies start to go to work. Mm-hmm. It's before all the delivery drivers usually come out. So everyone's asleep. Mm-hmm. So you are the only, and I would see no other cars on the road. And admittedly, it's a short drive from my home to the actual station itself, RTR FM, but I wouldn't see anybody.
Yep.
And it spawned a musical track and it spawned a video clip to go with it, which case I put a camera at different angles on a car and just drove around at night and so few people around. It was during COVID. Shh, don't tell me what. But yeah.
Well, there was probably even less because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but it's not like you weren't allowed to drive around then.
No, exactly. No, but it was surreal because, I mean, I even stopped and, stood in the middle of the street and took photos because it's something you don't see. You just don't see it.
That ghost town feeling. Yeah.
Like, am I the only one left?
Yeah.
Like, where is everyone sort of thing? Yeah. And then the world wakes up, obviously. But just in that brief, because you've been, I guess, interacting with someone imaginary. And this is the thing, right? So you're presenting late night radio. What you have to get into the mindset of is that someone, somewhere, is probably listening at some point. Now, whether it be live or after the fact, during, because you can replay all the shows on the station on the website for up to a month. So you go right now and play anything that you've missed. Yep. See a list and everything that's played and play them. And you have to get into this mindset that you're not just talking to yourself. I mean, you are, but you're not. So there's someone out there who's listening. And because you've been concentrating on that and fixating on that, you're kind of elevated and you're awake and you're more with it. And then you're driving home and there's that sort of coming down, I guess, of sort of that feeling of now I'm not performing anymore. Now I'm on my way home to go home and relax and sleep sort of thing. But it's that short period between leaving the station and getting home, it was for me anyway, that was very sort of surreal because dark, no one else, the lights were only street lights or house lights or whatever, and just driving along these empty streets. And
yeah, right.
It's very inspirational for me. And I'm a little bit of a night owl. I quite like the sort of isolation, the nighttime and stuff like that. But so I took to it, I guess. Anyway. So
it spawned a whole new generation of ideas and different things.
Yeah, and I'm not the only one because some of the conversations that I've had with other presenters and stuff, it's like, those times, I remember those times vividly because you felt like you were the only person in the world at that time because there's no interaction with anybody else live.
Yeah.
And even if you might get the occasional phone call or something like that, it finishes. It goes away. And then you are going home and it's surreal. It really is difficult to describe. But I suppose if you've been awake that late at night, you can understand what it is. But to do it regularly.
Yeah.
Because it was always at the same time every Friday morning for me.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like if people want to get into radio and they haven't done it ever before, you've got to be prepared to do those late nights.
You do.
And work out some way of being able to do that.
Yeah.
Somehow to get started.
The interesting thing is that RTR FM's policy with that is that you have to do 3 of those shows, so that you get your technique down. You basically get your eye in of what to do and when, and then you make it sound good.
Yeah.
And then the expectation is that you can then apply for other shows during the day or earlier at night or something like that, and join those shows as a presenter or as a guest presenter, guest co-presenter if you want to. But everyone's got to start there. And I did it for a very long time before I actually went to other shows. So I got quite a few shows under my belt. And I guess really for me, and one of the things that I was also trying to impart to a lot of people is that get your technique down, because then when the opportunity comes, it doesn't matter what show they offer you, you can do it.
Yeah, okay.
As long as you can do the music, as long as you get the music right, you can, and get the name of the show right, done. Easy. That's the main thing.
Yeah, because you do a lot of other fill-ins for people in the show as well, like, don't you? You do a lot of, you're available to do that kind of stuff.
Well, that show that I played your music was a fill-in. So that was a guest presenter slot during Out to Lunch during the day. So that's 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. on a weekday. Every day is different presenter. The regular presenter wasn't available on that day. I had prior knowledge, so I'd prepared the show, which is how I found your music, bunch of other WA stuff as well as Australian stuff, because I was determined to make that an Australian show. And yeah, that's how it works. But everyone does something different.
Yeah. Okay. So aside from all the technical stuff of like learning the desk and learning all the equipment and all that sort of stuff, what advice would you give to people if they were wanting to get into that and they're like, well, what do I talk about? Like, how do they research? Do they need to research stuff about music? Like, put together a show? Like, what makes a good show, do you think?
That answer is going to depend on who you talk to. I mean, you're asking me, obviously. Yeah. But see, the thing is...
What advice would you have? Considering you've seen all the stuff that you've seen at the station, and that you can see what's good and what's, maybe not as good, and what you do and what works.
Probably the best thing would be play music. If you're doing your first show, like the first show ever, play music that you know intimately. Even if you've heard it a bazillion times, play that. Obviously have the theme and have your show structured in such a way to make it interesting. But play music that you've heard a bazillion times before, because you'll know by hearing it how long you've got until the end of it. You don't have to watch the clock the whole time. If you need to take a pit stop, toilet break, if you need to go get a drink or something like that, you know that you've got 4.5 minutes, and you know in your brain, because that particular song is at that particular point, because you can generally hear it the whole way down to the loo and back again sort of thing. You know how long you've got. You're not playing music that you're unfamiliar with. You're also playing music that you know how it starts and how it finishes. Because you know if it like finishes abruptly or if it fades down, if there's talking at the front of it, or if it just kicks in with a beat or something like that. Know that intimately to start with. And like I said, as long as the music is something that you are very familiar with, you'll do much better, because it takes that out of the equation.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah, so you can concentrate on the talk breaks and things like that. So one of the things that I do when I bring someone into one of my shows who is perhaps wanting to get a bit of experience before doing their own first solo show is I will number all of my tracks, 01, 02, 03, 04, so even if they don't know my playlist, what comes after 4? Well, it's 5. So they go looking for 05. So then they play that. So they don't even need me there telling them what song to play next. They've automatically got it queued up. And that way then it also means that you're not having to refer to some external sort of playlist. You can just sort of bang off the numbers, and then you just play music. It takes that out of the equation. And especially with your first shows, because it's going to be late at night or early in the morning, just be prepared. Make things easier for yourself then. Don't try, I'll do it when I get there. No. Prepare beforehand. And that way you can concentrate on your talk breaks, your voice, how songs start and finish, and even be prepared to do like a semi-rigid playlist where this track, then this track, then this track, then this track sort of thing, so that if your concentration's waning a little bit, you're not having to concentrate on as much.
Yeah, right. So you're taking all the other, all those things that are knowns, making them solid, then you've only got a few little unknowns that, what am I actually going to say?
Exactly
here
right.
Or there, fill in things.
Exactly right. Some people like to use a script. Some people like to have things like bullet points and stuff like that. I generally don't use a script or bullet points. Usually it's in here. But I remember to say it or not, it's another story. But a lot of the time, the music itself will spark the anecdote. Because if you've thought about it once, you'll think about it again. And whether it's interesting or not, you might choose to sort of give the very, very shortened version of whatever story it is you're talking about. But yeah, just know your music. I would say the more you know it, the better, because it just takes that equation out of it, like having to figure out how long you've got by listening.
Yep.
You might want a cup of coffee. You've got to go into the kitchen. You've got to boil the kettle. You've got to make the cup of coffee. 4.5 minutes goes very quickly if you're, stressing about things.
Yeah.
So you just know it, basically, and then you can talk about it or whatever else and know that your next track is prepared and you know what it is and you know what it's called and who it's by, and it just makes it easier. Do the homework.
Yeah.
Make it easy for yourself.
Okay, that makes sense. And what about if people have a bit of knowledge, or they've already got this idea for a show and they think, I want to do a show about a particular theme, or they've got an interest in a particular type of music?
Yep.
Any advice for people that maybe they've already done some radio shows, or they'd like to make their show better? What kinds of things do you think make the show interesting, make people want to tune into it?
As much as I like to talk, and obviously it's a talk show, and I've done some talk shows on RTR FM before, and even in podcasts and stuff like that, my talk breaks generally when I'm presenting radio are short, because I figure that people are much more interested in the music unless you've got something interesting to say about the music. So back announce, impart the information, bang, bang, get it done, and play the music. In terms of interest, you can have a theme and make it as tenuous or as solid as you want. It doesn't really matter. But the thing with late night is, all of my shows always had a theme, right? Because I wanted something that sort of ties it all together. And it might be, say, some of the themes were as ridiculous and as ambiguous as some of my favourite pieces of music ever.
Okay. Yep.
It's not a very, very solid theme. It is to me, but it was everything from music that I'd heard in soundtracks to favourite dance numbers, 80s music, disco, some hip hop and R&B stuff. Yeah, that's what made it more, I guess, interesting to me, because if you're invested in it, if you sound enthusiastic about it, if you own it, then people are going to get, I guess, invested in it sort of more. If you're just blah, 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 people they start to switch off because it's not interesting.
Yeah. And when you're listening to new music, right, that let's say you're going through, you think, I want to play some local music and I'm going to listen to all this new music.
Yep.
What are the things that one would either put you off playing that music, or what you would think, this would make a good track for radio? What are the things that you listen out for and you think, this would be good, versus songs that you think they may not be well received? Or
I don't know, because we're talking about alternative radio. So someone somewhere at some point is probably going to like it, and that's the thing. I don't have to like it, and the differences between the shows that I would present in the evening or in the early morning, the early hours or whatever, especially when you first start, versus the daytime shows like when I played your music, when I played a bunch of other stuff, is that you don't necessarily have to like all of it, but you have to, it's not a job, but it is kind of your role to make sure that you are covering as many bases as you possibly can during the day, especially because that's when most people are listening. So it's the daylight hour shows that are probably the most crucial in terms of content.
Yeah, so how would you pick the music for those shows then? Is there certain things where you listen out for and you think, that wouldn't be well received on the radio? Thinking that might be people listening to this that are independent musicians themselves, and they're thinking, I want to get my songs on the radio. Are there obvious things that are I just couldn't play that, or that wouldn't be great, or this makes a song stand out that I know this will go well? For
me, and I'll answer your question this time.
It's okay.
Maybe it's the old fuddy-duddy in me. I take exception to swear words in song names or artist names. I'm not going to say I don't swear because that would be complete. We won't swear. But
Well, that is an issue for radio. Like, you can't...
on commercial radio, it is, absolutely.
You can't swear on the radio.
Exactly right, yeah.
Yeah, and probably community radio is similar, or not exactly?
You can swear to quote,
Yes.
but the rest of it, sort of rein that in.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I've never played music that has swear words in it before, because I presented a hip-hop show, like last night. There was some naughty words in that one.
I'm sure it'd be hard to do a hip-hop show without any swear words in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
But...
Profanity town.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Actually, last night was tame compared to the rest of it. But yeah, 100%. I guess that, and also, I don't know what it is at the moment with this obsession with lo-fi. Mm-hmm. Like, not great sound quality. Because
It's like an intentional,
it is.
not great.
It is.
Yeah, but, or maybe that it wasn't great and they've just then called it lo-fi. Is that what?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's like that old tape crackle, but it shouldn't be there.
Because I remember what music and equipment used to sound like, and a lot of it was crap. But now we've gone back to that I think a lot of it is it's the people who weren't there the first time. They're like, oh, that has a certain charm and nostalgia to it. No, it's just crap. Sorry, but make it sound good. Make it sound good, then people want to play it. Because the worst thing, of course, is that if you're going to do a show, and let's say 95% of it sounds good quality, and you're playing with volume and all that sort of stuff, because obviously volume levels are different, and then you get this thing that sounds like it was recorded through a traffic cone, or recorded through a telephone or something like that.
Yeah.
It kind of makes it hard to broadcast, and it just doesn't sound good.
Are you familiar with that guy that's just gone viral, Oliver Anthony? So his music, like, he has that song Richmond, North of Richmond.
Oh, okay.
Richmond, North of Richmond.
Right.
And it's just him and his a banjo, and that was properly recorded, like by an actual microphone. When I say properly recorded, that was the properness of it. It was in an outdoor setting, because you can see his fit, but it's just gone viral. Like, he's had many number ones and he only just released his music like 3 weeks ago. Right?
Does it sound all right, though?
Oh, his voice is amazing.
Okay,
And his banjo playing is good. But he wasn't expecting all that to happen, right? And so because that one song went viral, he suddenly then had 2 other number ones on the iTunes charts with his other songs. One's called I Ain't Got a Dollar, and he was just on Joe Rogan a couple of days ago.
Okay.
And he said, I just recorded that on my Android phone, and I just uploaded it to YouTube, and then I ripped the WAV file off of the YouTube and put it on Spotify. So it's just him. It's just him with his banjo on his eye. As soon as I heard that, I thought, man, there's just going to be all these people trying to record with they're like, oh, that's the missing. I just got to go back to my Android phone, and that's how I'm going to go far. Like, no, he's an anomaly and an exception, and it's probably the message of his songs that's resonating with people, of course, right? And he's got an amazing voice. But yeah, when you mentioned lo-fi, when I heard that, I was thinking, oh man, there's got to be a resurgence of people just saying, I'm just recorded this with the Android phone.
And here's the thing, right? On community radio, and RTR FM notably, you get a couple of shows that really embrace the alternative side of stuff. And I know for a fact that during one of the shows that I was a co-presenter on, one of the tracks that was featured was recorded through a disused water pipe.
A what?
Like a big water pipe, like a big concrete water pipe.
As in they put the microphone in there?
They put the microphone at one end.
Yep, okay.
And they recorded it from the other end.
Yep, okay. I was just thinking of the pipe only. I was like, how does that record? Okay. Yeah, so it's got that. Am I missing something here?
Witchcraft.
It got that sound, got that underwater, or that
sort of
echoey,
that echoey, reverberating sort of sound.
Yeah.
And because of the sort of music that it is, it gets away with it. But you couldn't do like a dance track or some sort of rock track or punk or hip hop or anything. You couldn't do it with that because it's very experimental in nature. That I don't have a problem with. It's when old man rants, apologies. It's when you deliberately make it sound like crap, and because you can.
Okay.
Not because you're not able to make it sound better. You can, but you just choose not to.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what. So long story
But
short,
that's personal preference as well. You're obviously pointing
absolutely.
that out. But yeah, it's good to know. Like,
Absolutely.
I think would it also be like if you've got all these songs, it's almost like if you're making an album and you've got one that's sort of like not like the others. When you make a radio show, is it kind of a bit like that? Like I can't sort of have one that's the dog's balls sticking out.
It's jarring.
Yeah, that's
When so much of it is so clean and well produced and stuff like that, and then you get that thing, and it's like, well, okay. Look, I would, if I was going to play it, I'd play it at the end. I would finish with it, and there would be some sort of disclaimer to say, this is lo-fi. You may not necessarily want to hear this, but you know, this is a bit different to what you might be used to.
Yep.
Here it is. Do whatever you want with it, basically.
Okay. And when you're listening to new music, what makes a song pop for you where you think, oh, wow, that's a great song. I like that song?
It's very hard to say. Good beats, just, I guess, how it sort of makes you feel.
Okay.
Because I generally, I will typically try and program during the day more upbeat stuff. And at night would be sort of more ethereal and sort of darker and maybe a grungier sort of sound to it. So if we're talking about during the day, it would be something that is uplifting in some way, something that's perhaps a bit entertaining, maybe a bit boppy. Doesn't necessarily have to be of any particular genre, but I guess just something that makes you move, might make you tap your foot or nod your head or something like that. Something that's catchy. And yeah, just something that I think, I'm not going to say middle of the road, because that's a very bit of a dangerous term, because then middle of the road tends to be very much aligned with mediocrity. But what I mean is that it's accessible.
As in middle of the road, like the majority of people would like it.
Accessible.
Yeah.
So it's not too far left or right of field to be weird or unusual or scary to some people who might listen. Because the thing is, right, my mum listens to RTR FM only during certain times of the day, because some of the music she'll hear she won't enjoy at all, and that's fair enough. But she knows to turn it on at sometimes. She doesn't often listen to me because some of the stuff that I'll play, like hip hop, she can't stand it. So, and that's her personal choice. She doesn't like hip hop, but the disco shows loves.
Yep.
And I'll do a disco and funk show as well, and it's because she was there the first time. She's remembering all this stuff again. It's like, I haven't heard that in years, and that's part of it. Okay. But yeah, picking music for that is a bit different, because it's sort of, again, but it's more uplifting and it's more engaging and stuff like that. But then hip hop, it can be, I won't go for the full misogyny of like the 1980s hip hop stuff.
Yeah.
But if it's got swear words, and if it's got perhaps an adult theme to it, absolutely. Why not? You got to expect it from a hip hop show. But yeah,
I guess if people are tuning into a show about a particular genre, they're going to have those expectations of that genre.
Exactly. I mean, oh no, you can't have swearing on this radio show. Well, it's a hip hop show, so
yeah, there's
swearing in hip hop. It's like,
surprise.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, you can't have a bass beat in a techno show. My goodness, you're going to rattle my windows.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, it depends on the show, but it needs to make you feel something, I think. Yeah. And you get to know very quickly what you can relate to. And there's some stuff that I don't like, but it's not because it's bad. It's just because my personal preferences, and a lot of the time it might even come down to, because I'll grab all this stuff and then I'll literally go through it and go, yes, 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 no, yes, 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 no. And a lot of the time, some stuff gets cut because because I'll do sets of 3 typically, and there'll be 3 very similar tracks. So it might be, say, 3 contemporary rock songs that are new. Might be 3 contemporary house or dance songs that are new. And then there might be some weird experimental ethereal thing that I like, but doesn't fit with the show. It gets cut.
Yep.
Or it goes somewhere else for another show. That's all.
Yeah.
So it's just dependent upon that, really.
Yeah, okay, cool. So let's talk about your music, and because you're involved in making music yourself, and you've been doing that for a long time now, right? A while now.
Yeah. So I started when I was 18, and limited by the technology at the time, and also money. Yeah. The ability to sort of fund this sort of stuff, because it's all self-funded. I mean, you yourself, you're self-funded. You know how hard it is. spending the money on good recording equipment or even equipment to produce in the first place, even to grab bits and, even sounds, record sounds, put them into your music can be a challenge. It was especially challenging in the 1990s when I started. And one of those things was that I did a lot with what I could. I produced 40 pieces of music during the 90s and early 2000s, then stopped, mainly because it had sort of reached its dead end. I'd focused more on DJing at that point in time, playing everyone else's music. Great, not a problem, because people will pay you to play music for crowds and stuff like that. Fantastic. Played at a lot of the clubs around Perth as a guest spot a lot of the time. And
what's your most requested DJ song? What do people love? I know that's going to be a song you don't want to hear because you probably have heard it so much. But what do people love the most?
Oh God! Okay, it depends on the crowd, but I spend a lot of time mobile DJing.
Yep.
So doing a wedding, doing a party, or whatever. You go there. You go there. You set up your gear. You play your gig. You tear down your gear, and you go home, sort of thing, right? So it might be 5 hours. Most requested song. Love Shack, B-52s.
Is it? Right.
Or
okay.
Billie Jean, Michael Jackson.
Okay.
Or I Will Always Love You, Whitney Houston.
Is it really?
Or
and I bet all the girls want to sing along to that.
Or My Heart Will Go On, Celine Dion. So, okay.
These are like your Oasis of, the acoustic guitarists Oasis. Right?
So as this show goes on, Marie, you'll find me devolving into maybe less and less being nice about things. No, I'm going to be cordial. I'll be nice because it's your show and all that sort of stuff. But let me just say, there are a couple of songs out there, and some of them I've mentioned already, that if someone said to me, you're never allowed to listen to that again, you're never allowed to play it, you're not even allowed to own it, fine, not a problem.
Yeah, but you have probably heard more of that than the average person.
The problem is, everyone wants it, and you know that it's a floor filler.
Yeah.
So
it's going to make them happy. They're going to come down and dance.
I DJ'd a wedding recently as a favour to a friend, and Billie Jean and Love Shack was on the playlist because it was full of a bunch of middle-aged white people and parents and people like that. They hear that music, it's their music.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who made it, doesn't matter how old it is, it's the stuff that they will always dance to. And yes, I heard those tracks again. But actually...
Okay. All right, well, go aside from that, I just had to ask you that question. So go back to your DJing and your own music. So you were getting into DJing and you were starting to...
It reached a head and it got to a point where I couldn't really do much more. And then... It was 2016, and I thought, I'm going to investigate now, a bit older, a bit more time and stuff like that. I'm going to investigate how to produce this stuff similar to how I used to, but with more modern technology and more modern software and stuff like that. Yeah. Came across some software, got it, tried it. This is what I'm used to, very good. I'll use this from then on, and then just ran with it. So from 2016 to now, done an album, done an EP. Sorry, the album was 11 tracks, the EP was 6. And then during 2021 and 2022, did like 10 pieces of music just as a single release, not as an album or an EP. Yep. Been a bit slack this year. I guess hadn't got the love for it as much as I did last year, sort of thing, but it's picking up again. So you know yourself, the inspiration it takes... It comes in waves, it comes in cycles. You have to grab it when you get it and sort of keep running with it. But I haven't had much of it this year. Okay. Yep. Having said that, I've remixed a couple of things. And
you've got a new song coming out, yes. Click Me. So click it. It's a good title.
Yep.
And that's instrumental, house, hip-hop, kind of, not hip-hop, but house dance kind of feel.
It's a remix of a track that I did in 2021. And what I did is I took some elements out, made some of it a bit longer, and I call it the minimalist mix because it's less, but it's more. So it's not quite, the high highs aren't as prevalent in it. It's sort of more even keel, and it's more contemporary sounding as a result of that, I think.
Yeah. Is all your music instrumental, or do you have vocalists on it, or do you collaborate with other people in that way?
I've got a couple of tracks where I had a couple of guest vocalists,
Yeah.
but it's tiny.
Yeah.
Like there's one that's literally just a ooh, and that's it.
Okay.
And sorry, and there's another one where it's actually
a bit of special ooh.
yeah. The other one is Feel All Right, and that's the only thing that's sung in that particular track. Mm-hmm. That's actually got me singing it in the background. But yeah. You can't hear much of me, thankfully. There's a female vocalist over the top, and she's way better. I just wanted to put... It needed something else. Mm-hmm. Like, when I recorded it, I wasn't happy with the way it recorded. It didn't sound... You sometimes it doesn't sound rich enough. It doesn't sound full enough.
Yep.
So I had to fill in the gaps with my voice.
Well, the vocals often fill up that high end.
Yes.
As of the track, right? So you might have so much going on in the low end without enough.
Yeah.
Unless you've got, I don't know, trumpets or some kind of
100%.
High end instruments really, really pumping it out.
Noodly synths and pipe organ. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, something melodic like a carrying the because the vocals often carry the melody of the song. So but it's nice to have instrumental music as well. Like I think we don't have enough of it in society as like promote. Like it's there because you listen to a TV show or you listen to a movie and there's always music going on and it's usually instrumental in the background, right? There's always this music going on, but you don't hear that played on the radio very often unless it's an instrumental show or something.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's, I mean, it's not the only place because people often just have their own Spotify playlists now, but radio used to be the place where people would get their music from.
Yep.
But yeah, it's nice to have background music without voices, especially if you're working. I find like, the melody and the music carries you off into a different place. Whereas if there isn't any melody, you can sometimes just focus on your own things you're thinking about. Like, yeah.
That was the whole idea with this one. Originally developed to talk over, and I found that listening to it and sort of mixing it, it sort of stands up a little bit as itself, like as its own track. I mean, there's no question of where it's come from. Like it's a remix of an original one, but I sort of tweaked a few things, extended a few things, and just sort of evened it out a little bit more. So there's no high highs and low lows. It's just sort of more even, and it just But my stuff is generally instrumental, simply because, little known fact, there's quite a few dance tracks, in particular in the late 90s and early 2000s, that started out as instrumentals and then they added the vocals later.
Okay.
And because I worked as a DJ a lot, I have both versions of these tracks. The instrumental's usually way better.
Okay.
Because it doesn't necessarily need to be singing all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not all the time.
That's the thing. Like, you have to tell yourself it doesn't have to be singing all the time. Like, yeah.
But I do get asked, when are you going to sing?
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. Maybe you could put up the songs as like a TikTok or a Instagram, one of those challenge things. It's like, you make the, you sing the part, here's the lyric, like just a little poem or something, and, you sing your part and see what people come up with. That's a good idea. Maybe,
yeah. We could
like
kick something off.
Duet me sort of thing, and you've got the instruments.
Is that an offer?
Well, I've seen it work with other people. I've seen people do it. It gets your song out there.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. What's your favourite music to make? Because you make a bit of hip hop, you make techno, ambient. You said you make stuff that's sort of like soundtracky vibes for movies, sort of ideas.
Favourite? It depends on the mood. I don't know that I could properly answer that. What I can tell you is the most trouble I've ever had making a track was the shortest, and it was hip hop.
Okay.
And it wasn't because it was a technical track or anything like that. It's my own maybe closet OCD or something. I couldn't get it sounding how I wanted it to sound. And I ended up starting it, nearly finishing it, tweak. All of that sounds junk, start it again.
Okay.
And I ended up with something that was very, very similar to what I started with originally. Okay.
Yeah.
And that was a painful process. But it really just depends. Like, I've got a couple of long ambient pieces. One of them's called Message from Space. The other one's called The Deep Dark. Deep Dark came first, and it was just, I like weird ethereal, dark, sort of distant sounds. And I wanted to make a couple of tracks like that. When you listen to them in headphones, it's very interesting because it sounds like the sounds are coming from sort of everywhere, not in front, not, it sounds like coming from behind and everything like that. And I enjoy making those ones because I've had a good amount of positive response from them as well.
Yeah, okay.
But I do rather like a nice bass beat. Like 4/4, just a nice doop, 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 and then some synth and stuff like that. Track I'm working on at the moment, which I'm sort of in and out and working on, is very synth heavy, much like a track that I released previously called Synthetic Dreams, which was actually my most popular track. But yeah, that I quite like as well because I like that sort of, this whole resurgence of ambient electronic 80s sort of stuff, like this vaporwave, sort of dark wave stuff I really like. I never used to, and I've really gotten into it. And I sort of reference a lot of that sort of style as well. So that's a solid favourite. Not too fast.
Okay.
So, we're not getting into, having said that, actually, I am working on a drum and bass track, but nothing really, really fast, I guess. And I'm not afraid to not have a beat in there at all, or just something it depends on my mood.
Okay.
Really.
And what do you think music does for you when you're making it? Like, why do you make it?
I think it comes down to that thing I was saying before. There's something in me that wants to create. Now, music doesn't run in the family. I'm the only one who dabbles with music and stuff like that. But arts does. My mum's an artist. My grandmother was an artist. And it's a different creative process, obviously, but it's creative. It's taking nothing and making it into something. And to me, I guess it's interesting because it gives you a purpose. One of the things I think that human beings, this is Dr. J's philosophy here. It's a 2-cent philosophy, take it with a grain of salt, whatever. But I think human beings, they need to have a purpose.
Yeah.
They need to feel like they belong to something. Purpose is a very fundamental thing. And it's, if you, talking to a few people, when they lack purpose, they lack drive, they lack interest in things. Yeah. So having a purpose and having something where you can take something and create something from it gives you a purpose. And I find for me, it's a very cathartic thing to create something. However, the reason why I didn't do an album and an EP recently is because those two took an immense amount of time to make because I kept playing with the music.
Yeah.
I stopped myself by doing that by releasing the music.
Okay.
So now it's out there, move on to the next thing.
Okay, yeah.
You can stop fiddling with it now, sort of thing. Gives yourself permission to move on. Obviously you remix it, which is what I've done with this new track, Click Me, the minimalist mix. But it means that you can have a project, you can focus on it, you can complete it, and then you can move on to the next thing. Yeah. I enjoy that.
Okay. Yep.
Definitely.
So you've created something, it's done, there's a sense of completion about it.
Exactly right. And much the same as daily tasks, errands and stuff like that. If you've got a list and you can tick it off, you feel lots better about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've accomplished something.
Yeah.
Basically.
You've done your to-do list.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. But obviously music is more than just a to-do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just a to-do list.
It's not a job.
Yeah.
And I do know some musicians who their music is a job because they're studio musicians. So they have work and they need to lay down a certain sound or something like that. Then they can go home. And I do know someone through YouTube. I found his music through another video, contacted him, played some of his music on RTR FM, and he was doing commissions.
Right.
So he would be, making music for other people for a certain purpose, for a video, for a TV show or something like that.
Yeah.
Quite prolific. And he churns out so much music. His back catalogue, there'd probably be 250 tracks that he's got in the last sort of 5 years, 6 years.
Yeah, right.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And they're all such high quality as well. Like a lot of them are very, very similar, and you can hear elements from one and the other and something like that. But they're all distinct pieces of music, and they're all of such good quality that it amazes me because he just fires them off.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like coming back to what you said about the radio. The more you do it, the better you get at it. And over time, if you hone that skill and you just are doing that, because a lot of musicians don't have the opportunity to do that as they have to do something else for their day job as well.
Yeah.
So they aren't doing that all the time. But the more you do what you're doing, if you're getting, I guess you could keep on doing something and it will just stay the same.
Yeah.
If you don't try to improve it.
Yeah.
You might just create more and more of the same, not so great quality stuff. But like in general, if you keep on going. So yeah, the more you keep doing it, obviously the better you're going to get at it.
Of course.
Yeah. And so what do you want to do with your music sort of, going forward? Like what's your sort of goal with what you're doing? You said you weren't maybe getting too inspired this year. Do you feel like inspiration will come to make you're gonna make another album, or you're gonna work on something?
No, I think I'm going to keep releasing tracks in a trickle, and then I might do like some sort of compilation or something like that, where, because I like so many different genres, I had a few ideas where to make like an EP of past releases, and then like include like a remix or something like that of one of them in there, so like a 4 or 5 track EP. 4 of them might be past, and then there might be one sort of newish track in there or something like that. But yeah, that whole releasing a piece of music as I finish it is better for my process, simply because I can't then go back to it. It stops me going back to it, and that's the big thing. It's why I did it, because just move on. Because I keep filling with it and making it worse,
right,
or better, but then it sounds different, and then another track spawns from it, and it's like, what are you doing? Just finish something, would you please?
Yeah.
I
guess that's a common. I mean, I've heard that other people say that when they produce their own music, that's a common issue, right? Because you can just keep. It's like, it's not like a cake where it's cooked.
Yeah,
like you can just keep on cooking it.
Exactly right.
The next thing you know, it's like, I thought this would. I'll just recook it. Like, but you don't. It's
then
like it's not that obvious when it's kind of done.
Then it's not a cake anymore. It's like some sort of weird stew or something, and it's like, this is not what I wanted when I started. So you start again, and that's the worst thing.
Yeah, that's why I like not doing my own things. I just did this production course. Like it was good because I wanted to know more information about what things are.
Yeah.
Because I'm a bit of a novice in those areas. But it just made me more grateful that I know someone else that has done all my songs so well, and I was just like, because that would probably, I can see how that would be the issue, like where you'd just be like, could this how is this thing ever going to be finished? How, like what is good, like what's.
But see, and your process, when you hand it off to someone, you're done, right? And that's up to them to basically finish the rest. They might ask some more of you.
Yeah.
But your involvement for the most part is sort of finished.
Yep.
They do it, you sign off on the finished product, and then it's completed, right?
Yeah.
But because I'm doing it all of myself, my step is, now that I've composed it, I need to tweak it. And I'm not happy with the way that sounds. Change it. Stop. And that's the big thing, is that there's no finality to the process until you physically say, right, now I'm going to release it so that everyone knows it's there and I can move on. It's that that psychological thing.
Most producers must have a system to know in a way, like, okay, I can, this is enough.
But the other thing as well, you probably found this yourself, as you get older, or as you go on and you have more experience and stuff like that, you get more fussy about things.
Oh, yeah. It's really interesting because I made this album at the start of my music and I didn't release it. I'm going to release it next year. And I released a track off it recently, and I was listening to the tracks to do something with them. And I was thinking, oh, man, that isn't that great. And I remember doing that song thinking, this is the best song. It's so great. Like, it's not terrible or anything, but I was just like thinking, if I had done that now, I would have put more sounds in it. I would have, asked for more things in it or worked on it more, sort of thing. And I was just like, I just want, like, for me, it's the song idea. It's like the lyrics are really important. Here's the song.
Yep.
It like, just let's just add some drums and some bass and it'll be all good. Sort of thing, like just add some extra people in there. And these were recorded live, like they weren't electronic instruments, they were live drums and live band and stuff. But then, you sometimes have other sounds and feel it out more, is what I mean. Like,
yeah.
And you do get more, the more you do it, like the more fussy you get, and you're like, oh, maybe this could be better, or maybe that could be better, or maybe this, and yeah, you don't realise that. And that's what made me think when I was mentioning that guy that went viral with just his little banjo and his microphone, because every man and his dog wants to have a commentary on this viral guy, and then that's the Oliver Anthony guy, and say why they think this and why they think that, as people do, as we're doing now, jump on his coattails. But, I heard people mentioning the idea of like music for musicians versus music for the people, right? And like just that, you sit around a campfire with a guy on a guitar, and there's something beautiful and lovely about that. And it doesn't need to be all that polished. It doesn't need to be all like, there's not all these like little sounds kind of like extra.
No, it doesn't have to be amazing.
And is that in a way like it's good? It's kind of you need both. But what I'm saying is sometimes we just need that. Yeah, maybe not lo-fi, but just like
look, some of it's
less
all right.
Could be more.
Some of it I don't have a problem with at all. It's just some of it, I don't know, like.
Yeah.
And you can tell they've added it, like record pops and scratches and stuff like that. It's just all those noises and stuff that really don't exist.
I'll not send you any songs with those scratches in them.
I don't have a problem with it on the whole, but when they're trying too hard to sound, say, retro or, but it's just, it doesn't have to be polished. And that was the thing. So I've got a track. It's probably about 95% done. And Jay from 2016 would have released it by now.
Okay, yeah. But now you've got
higher
standards.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I listened to it, it's like, there's something missing. What is it? And I don't know what it is. And it's driving me mad because you listen to it over and over and over again. It's like, what is it that's missing? And I haven't figured it out yet. And
might be that voice that you need to add in that
no. Not on this one.
Okay.
Not in this one.
Yeah. But that's also a sign that you're getting better too, isn't it? Like you're getting more knowledgeable in that industry. You're getting more knowledgeable about what you can do, more confident in what you can do, thinking I could do better, and that's a sign of that you're growing. I think
you're elevating your standards, basically. Yeah. And like we were saying, it's impossible to get worse at it by doing it.
Yeah.
So it's just you're just elevating your standards and getting better, and you get more fussy, more particular. But that's, I suppose, it comes with experience in a lot of things. Like, you start dating, and your criteria for someone that you're looking for when you're in your teens and 20s is like, hey, and when you're
a person.
Yeah, exactly. Hi.
You like me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, when you're in your 30s and 40s and maybe even 50s, it sort of becomes much more narrower. And then when you really can't afford to be more picky, you are more picky. And it's just, unfortunately, one of those things with life.
Yeah. Yep. So music is just like
music is
life.
Life.
Songs like dating.
Yeah, music is life.
Yeah.
Music imitates life.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Good, yeah. Oh, it's so great to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you.
About your music and you especially sharing your industry experience with people. I think that's really valuable for young people, or even not young people as in young of age, but young into getting into that. Some people get into radio and stuff when they're older, right? They just want to get into it.
I think the best advice I could probably give anybody who's looking at making music and releasing it would be, and you probably know this, you'd know this yourself, put on an AMRAP to make it available for free to broadcasters, anybody who might be likely to play it on the radio, any radio station, and also sign up for APRA AMCOS. So APRA AMCOS gives you remuneration and it gives you royalties based on music that you've played. That other people have played that you've submitted to AMRAP, because they're all tied together and stuff.
Yes.
You know that.
Yes.
So, when your music appears in a radio show or for whatever reason, you get compensated for it, which is very nice.
And I think even if you don't have, even if you don't think anything is going to come of it, like you still need to do that because it's free to sign up for that. It's really costs you about an hour or half an hour to sign up for the AMRAP and actually load up a song to them. But because I've met other musos and they didn't know about that. They even didn't have their songs registered with APRA AMCOS.
Right.
And, like I did a collab with this guy recently and he didn't have any of that stuff organised. And I was like, well, like you just don't know. Like your song could be getting used somewhere and you don't even realise that. And
exactly.
What's really great is even if you got like $2 of royalties, you can go and check and see who's playing these songs through the APRA website, and it'll show you like, oh, and sometimes I've looked on there and gone, oh wow, that song's actually the most popular song, and I didn't realise that was the popular song.
Yeah,
like that's quite useful for you if you're
100%.
If you're in the process of making new music and you're thinking, oh, people actually like that. I thought that was no one liked it, because sometimes people, maybe it gets more played on radio and it doesn't get much play on Spotify. That can happen.
Yeah, 100%.
Or it's really might be popular on your TikTok or not on somewhere else. But on radio, it's like, oh, people actually liked this song, and you wouldn't know that until you
Spotify
sign up for those things.
It kind of muddles it a bit because it's very results driven, but radio's not. And the whole independent radio thing is that if the presenter likes it, they'll play it.
Yeah, right. But you might have songs that you'd played and people call up. Do people call up and say, oh, I love that song? And then has there ever been like a surprise where you're like, oh, I didn't realise that would be a popular one? Or that would be so...
No, because good? You get to that point where you know that on an alternative radio station, someone out there is going to like it.
Yeah, but has there ever been something that's really surprised you out of the box where you were thinking, oh man, I wasn't expecting this, people to really respond to this?
Not so, actually. There's been some stuff that has surprised co-presenters that they've liked so much, and it's stuff that I found on AMRAP. There's a local outfit called VISAC, VISSAC, and they're very jazz fusion sort of. Almost a lot of their stuff is almost drum and bass in nature and stuff like that. But in an EP, they'll have a couple of slow jazz cocktail numbers that would belong in a cocktail bar, and then some sort of upbeat, more energetic dancing numbers and stuff. But it's always a solid bop, and it's always very, very good production. And one of my co-presenters for a show was very surprised. She's like, "What is this? This is very cool," and it's an interesting fusion that a lot of people might not even know exists or have heard of or even thought of, and these guys do it.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, and that sort of thing where someone is surprised by it, I think it piques interest, and then it's like, well, who are these guys? I want to go and investigate and find out more of what they've done, basically. But yeah, it does happen, yeah. But I get surprised by how much I might like or how much something might stick in here after I've played it once.
Okay.
So, oh, that was very catchy. It now lives in here for a little while. So yeah, earworm.
yeah.
It's just one of those
Can
things.
be good or annoying. Well, but it's good for the artist if they have to go back and play that
100%.
song again, because that's what I usually have to do. I'm like, oh God, I got to play that song again. Yeah, I got to listen to it again.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Awesome. All right. Well, we look forward to hearing your new track when it comes out. Click
Thank
me. Click it.
Yeah.
Click it. Click the track. And we'll put the links to that below, to your Spotify and to wherever they can get. And people can get your album off Bandcamp, right?
Yeah, got a Bandcamp. Everything's on Bandcamp at the moment. It's not terribly expensive. You can pay more, like most artists do. Like it's there.
Yeah,
you can listen to it or whatever, SoundCloud and all that other stuff as well. But yeah, Click Me's out on Thursday. I think I'll put it out on Thursday.
Awesome. All right, sounds good. It's a really short run. You just
yeah, why not? Get it out there.
Yeah.
Get it done. Move on.
There we go. All right. Well, we look forward to hearing the next one.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everyone. And if you're new to the show and you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you click subscribe if you're listening on YouTube. Thank you for supporting us. And if you're listening on Apple, then rate the show. That really helps to get us known. So you can rate the show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and that really helps. Thanks very much. And I look forward to seeing you on another show soon. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you, Marie.